Hey everyone, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Bethany, and today's recipe I'm going to be showing you how to make pasta fagioli with sausage. Instead of a classic and authentic pasta fagioli like I've shared before that uses pancetta, we are replacing that with sausage, and it's just heartier, more filling, just as delicious. I love pasta fagioli. It's one of my favorites, and I love this version. So let's get right into it. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is cook our Italian sausage. So I have a 5.5 quart Dutch oven pot heated up over medium heat. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil to that. And we're going to do 1 pound of sweet Italian sausage. And I had that in a casing and I just removed it, so I'm going to break that up with my wooden spoon. I want to have that into nice bite-sized pieces, and we just want to cook the sausage first before we cook the rest of the ingredients in the soup. This recipe was inspired by a Italian Tuscan bean and sausage dish that I had in New York City a few weeks ago. When I was eating it, I was like, this reminds me of pasta fagioli, but without the pasta. And so I just was like, why not make a version of pasta fagioli, which is my favorite soup, with sausage? And it's delicious. I absolutely love it. But we'll break up the sausage, cook this for a few minutes until it's no longer pink. And while our sausage is browning, I'm gonna get my vegetables prepped. So I'm not going crazy with the vegetables that I'm putting in this pasta fagioli. If you watched my authentic pasta fagioli video, I did not use carrot. I'm using the same thing here, just 1 onion and 1 celery stalk. I just feel like having some restraint with the vegetables in a pasta fagioli really allows everything else to shine, and it's not too busy. So I'm gonna dice these small. I really don't want big chunks of onion and celery in this, so really try to keep those cut small because we want the focus to be on the pasta, the beans, and the sausage. All right, so our sausage is no longer pink. And if you want to brown it more, you totally can. But I'm just going to remove this with a slotted spoon. I have a bowl just lined with paper towels to just sop up any of those extra oils. And we're going to transfer this out of the pot because we want to cook the vegetables, and then we'll return this to the pot. And then in the same pot, we're going to add our onion and our celery. And if you feel like your pot needs more oil, you can always add an extra drizzle. I feel like mine is fine right now, especially with the oils that the sausage releases. Then we're gonna add a generous pinch of salt to our vegetables, and we'll mix those together. I'm gonna cook these until they're soft, so about 3 to 4 minutes. Bump my heat up a little bit. Okay, so my vegetables are looking great, nice and soft. So now I'm gonna add 5 cloves of minced garlic, but I'm gonna use a garlic press for this. And I'll just stir that in, cook it with the onions for about 30 to 60 seconds. And for this step, I've done it in other soups. You can totally skip this, but I like to deglaze the bottom of the pan with just a generous splash of white wine, a dry white wine. It is seriously so minimal, it's just a splash. So you can leave this out, you can do it, but this is just gonna add a nice depth of flavor to the soup. When I was making the soup, I found sometimes that the pan needed to be deglazed, so I had wine on hand, just use that for more flavor, but you can also just use chicken stock if you don't wanna use alcohol. And then we're gonna add our sausage back in with the vegetables. Get some of that wine flavor on them too. It's already smelling so good. I think it was George Leonard who left a comment a while ago when I did a recipe with sausage and was saying that sausage is like a secret weapon for recipes that just instantly makes them so much better and so much more flavorful. And I have to agree with that. It's just already so flavorful, and when you add it to recipes, it makes the whole dish taste amazing. So if you're newer to cooking, that's a great thing to know, is sausage really is a secret weapon for making recipes just taste so much better. And then for some additional sources of flavor, we're gonna do 1/8 of a teaspoon of red pepper flakes. You can totally do a 1/4 teaspoon if you want for a little bit more spice. Add a little bit more in there. This won't be spicy, just giving it a little bit more flavor. We're gonna do 1 rosemary sprig, pop that in there. And then it wouldn't be in a simple palate soup without adding a Parmigiano Reggiano rind. This is going to infuse so much Parmesan flavor into the soup. And then we have 1 cup of plum tomatoes. And I like to just use plum tomatoes and then crush them myself. So I'm just gonna use my hands to really crush these into small pieces. One of the things with pasta fagioli is I always felt like it was over tomatoey, and I think us Americans do that. It's like more of a vegetable soup, and I think that tomatoes are great in a pasta fagioli, but just a little bit. So I'm only using a cup for just a little bit of acidity. We're gonna add this in. We're actually gonna be real traditional, and we're gonna use borlotti beans in this. So this is a very classic bean for an Italian pasta fagioli. I have to order these on Amazon because I don't know any store that carries them. You can just replace these with cannellini beans. So I have 2 14-ounce cans here that I rinsed and drained, but I'm only using half of my beans because I'm gonna blend the rest for some creamy consistency. I always try to make sure that I'm cutting it accurately in half because I never want to blend too much beans and then have not enough left over to have actual texture of beans in the soup. We're gonna add 1 cup of chicken stock that we're using from our 5 cups in the recipe. And that just poured all over the counter. This thing does not work. So now I'm just gonna blend this until it's creamy. And like I said, this is gonna add such a beautiful creamy consistency to the soup, but it's also gonna add as a natural thickener. And then we're gonna add our remaining 4 cups of chicken stock. Okay, before we get this cooking, we're gonna add a generous pinch of salt. Have to remember that the sausage has a good bit of salt, at least the one that I'm using does. So you wanna keep that in mind when seasoning. I don't over season at this point. Then we'll do a generous crack of black pepper. And we are not adding the pasta yet because I need the vegetables to soften up a bit, the onion, the celery, need some flavors to start to develop before that. So we'll let this cook for about 20 minutes. I'm gonna partially cover this. I do not want that liquid absorbing because when we add the pasta, it's gonna start to absorb. And so we don't want all that going away. So keep it partially covered, let it cook for 20 minutes, and then we'll add the pasta. Okay, so the soup has been cooking for about 20 minutes, and now we're gonna add the pasta. So I am using a whole grain ditalini pasta. This is my favorite choice for pasta fagioli. Ditalini is just that perfect bite-sized size. And I'm gonna do just under a cup of pasta because I don't really like pasta soups to be overly pasta-y, if you know what I mean. So I'm gonna do about 3/4 cup. Put that in and stir that pasta in. And now I'm going to keep this uncovered and stir frequently because the pasta will stick to the bottom. And some people like to cook the pasta separate and then add it, but I really like to cook it with the soup because it releases a lot of starches. It's gonna add to a creamier consistency with the soup. So that's my choice, but you can cook it separate and then add it. But I just think overall the soup is better when the pasta's cooked with it. Okay, so this pasta specifically takes 9 minutes to cook. Every pasta is gonna be different, and this isn't cooking at a rapid boil like pasta typically does. So it's gonna need a couple minutes more than what your box will say. And then as you cook, you're gonna see the liquid start to evaporate a little bit. It's gonna reduce just a little, and then hopefully we have a creamier consistency with the starches releasing too. All right, so the pasta is fully cooked. Hudson, our dog, knows the soup is done. He is here begging. I don't know what he's begging for. He doesn't get this soup, but probably the Parmesan cheese that I just pulled out to serve with it. Everything is looking amazing with this soup. It's definitely reduced a good bit, thickened with that starch from the pasta. It looks so good. But I'm gonna taste it before I do an official tasting. I'm just tasting the broth because I wanna make sure if it needs a little bit more salt. No, that is perfect. Like I said with the sausage, gotta be careful with the salt because it's perfectly seasoned at the end. But I'm gonna serve this. It looks so good. This is what I want in a pasta fagioli. It's creamy, and it actually, the more it will sit with the heat off, it's gonna get creamier and thicker. I did just wanna mention, I will discard the rosemary sprig and the Parmesan rind if you've never cooked with those. The parm rind is right here. It just gets really soft, and you can totally eat that, but I'm not going to. But we're gonna serve this with some Parmigiano Reggiano. And I did just want to mention that when this soup sits, like I said, it will thicken. And if you reheat this the next day, what will happen is you'll definitely need to add some more stock to the soup because it can really thicken, because as the pasta sits with it, it just absorbs the liquid. But now we can taste it. So good. That is, it has to compete with my other pasta fagioli recipe. It's just that good. It is so flavorful, if not more flavorful because of the sausage. We include pancetta in the other recipe, like I said, but this just adds so much more flavor using the sausage. It is so good, and one of the things that I love about this soup and my other pasta fagioli is I really try to make the focus just about the pasta and the beans, and then in this case, the sausage as well. We used celery, but you would never know. I cut that so small. I made sure that it would disappear into the soup. We don't want big chunks of things in here because then it's a vegetable soup with all these other things. This should just be the focus of pasta and beans and the sausage, and that's what it is. The tomatoes are there for a nice acidity. I love the rosemary in it. If you don't want the leaves of the rosemary going into the soup, you can wrap the whole sprig with twine just to make sure everything stays together, but I don't mind the pieces of rosemary in there. And actually sage would be such a great addition as well. You could do sage and rosemary bundled together for some flavor, but it is so good. It is just a soup filled with love, and it is so comforting. It's great for the winter weather to stay warm and just cozy up and pair this with some bread. I definitely feel like I can't choose a favorite with this one and my other pasta fagioli. They're just both that good. And that's my favorite soup, the authentic pasta fagioli, or pasta fazool. Didn't mention that. That's the other term that people like to use for the soup, pasta fazool, pasta fagioli. But it is just so good with the sausage. So if you have never tried pasta fagioli with sausage, I think that it is worth trying because it is so flavorful. Love the borlotti beans, but like I said, you can use cannellini. And I honestly, the jars that I use, they're just under 14 ounces, so they're not actually the full serving that it's on my website. But I would like more beans in this. It's just my jars are not that big. So I could have had more in here. If you use the full size, you'll be good with 2 14-ounce cans, but I love this. So I hope you do too. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you so much for the support. I think we are close to 80,000 subscribers as we record this, so I am so thankful for all of that. I can't even believe it, and I'm just so grateful for all the support, all the comments, and I hope you guys enjoy the recipes. That's the most important part. So as always, I'll catch you in the next recipe, and I'll see you in the comments.